and the Lord shall utter his voice before his army. For his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it?
To have another opportunity, once again, to acknowledge the infinite, inexplicable, the great and terrible power of Yahweh. And we do so in the name of his only begotten Son, YAHAWAH'S. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to be going through some of the Torah portion as it relates to the topic today. But we want to deal with some of the parallels of slavery, if you will. This is something that we bring out all the time. We just want to go back and kind of look again at it and see some of the foundational things that establish us as Israelites, and just make sure that we're not leaving anything out. How many of you know that when we go and we rehearse the righteous acts, that's along with rehearsing the scriptures, that there's still things that you can see that you haven't seen if you go back over them. I know a lot of people, speak about the camps, but the camps are out there, and we're actually reiterating and we're bringing to remembrance these things that the Most High has given to his people. And when repetition helps to solidify, repetition helps to seal, repetition also builds confidence, and it makes you skillful. So all praises. Let's start once again, and let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68. This is something that we read all the time. This will bring out some of the parallels of slavery. All right. Let me get a reader.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
And no man shall buy you. So we see that the parallel between what happened in Egypt, and this is Moses prophesying what would happen to us in the latter times. And this is an identifying characteristic. It's well known throughout the Israelite community. Give me the book of Exodus 1:14, because what's synonymous with the bondage and that you're being sold to your enemies is the evidence that you're going to go through some type of labor. That you're going to go through a physical labor, and that this would be the defining or definitive characteristics that would qualify you as an Israelite. Because a lot of people say, you don't know that you know Israelite. How do you know? You can't prove that. With their science, with DNA, well, we can prove it with history, archaeology, and anthropology. And there are many people that are teaching now that still don't have this foundation of their identity according to these scriptures, and that's where they get tripped up. A lot of people are dealing with the matriarchal or the matriarchal lineage. Right. We see that. We even see that in what we call the Indian community, or we know it to be Gadites, that a lot of these people that are claiming to be indigenous to this land are coming through the matriarch and not the patriarch, not through that lineage, All right. So let's read Exodus 1 and 14.
Book of Exodus chapter 1, verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage.
This is one of the parallels between this Egypt, where the Most High said he was going to bring us into Egypt again. And they made their lives bitter with what?
With hard bondage.
With hard bondage. To qualify yourself as an Israelite, you have to identify with the hard bondage. All right? I'm going to see if I can get this. I don't know why my phone is picking up. I think I'm going to set. Let me get up there with just a little bit so I can get up. I got it. All right. So read it again, Exodus 1:14.
Come, and they make their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field.
And of all manner of service in the field. When Moses said that we were going to be brought back into Egypt, back into that bondage, it was going to be synonymous with the hard labor that we did in Egypt. There's nobody else that identifies with that struggle except for the Israelites. All right? This is a defining characteristic. One of the backbreaking tasks of the Israelites in bondage was making bricks out of what? Mortar. And when you look at some of the ancient hieroglyphics, you see the Israelites bending over. That's back-breaking work, bending over that labor. That's synonymous. Everybody, when they talk about the indentured servants, they talk about a certain type of slavery. It's not this hard bondage, all right? And we have to bring that out. We can't overemphasize that because you see a lot of people, what's some of the first things they say to us? They say, you know what? Everybody was slaves. Everybody was oppressed. Have y'all heard that before? Well, absolutely. We get that all the time. But when you bring this out and you put the emphasis on the hard bondage, that's different. It says in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. It goes back to the same curses. You'd be cursed where? In the city, and you're going to be cursed in the field. Everybody is not, or has not, as a nation, experienced those same curses. All right? Give me Jeremiah 2:14. Remember, these were bricks. That's hard bondage. That's where you get your masons from. The Israelites were laying bricks. That's hard work. If any of you ever know anything about mortar and bricks and masonry work, that's hard labor. Hard bondage in mortar and in brick. Who were the brick masons when we were brought over here to build places like the White House? We were. Who were the people that built the buildings of Wall Street? Who were the people that did that? Matter of fact, not only that, but places like Harvard University that our people trying to get into. A lot of these so-called Division I, highly esteemed and prestigious schools that they don't even allow us to come in. We built them. They were built on the backs of slaves. Notre Dame. All this is what we did. It's the same bondage. It's the same labor that we did in ancient Egypt.
So like I remember we went to that slave plantation, and you still see the fingerprints on the slaves.
Look, you see that? You can still see the fingerprints on the bricks from the slaves. That goes back to that Exodus 1:14. And in brick and in all manner of service, that bondage links up with the bondage in the Egypt that we were going to be brought to on ships. You can say whatever you want. People say, well, no, those ships, that wasn't talking about that. That's a metaphor to something. Man, get out of here.
Right. And it's a precept. This is Deuteronomy 28:46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
Forever. And we know until that bondage will still be us in hard bondage. All right? Even now today, when you go to work, who has to work the hardest?
You know, still today, we the brick masons, because we do the bricklaying, even the concrete slabs, the ground, all that. We still do that today.
Still do that today. Look at that. And that's when you should look on the side of the road. Usually, who's building the roads? Who's the taskmaster overseeing us? It's nothing new under the sun. Who the one standing with his hands in his pocket and he got the white hat on? Right. Right? He got the white hard hat. Well, all of us with the yellow hard hat on. All right, we're gonna look at a little bit of that today. So bring in Jeremiah 2 and 14.
God, it's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?
That's the question. Why is he spoiled and even spoiled to this day? Who got that phone on? They're gonna cut that out. That's annoying. You already know how that is. Why is he spoiled? Is Israel a servant? And the answer is yes. These are identifying characteristics. Is he a home-born slave? Meaning, where he was was he born into slavery? How many can identify with that? I was born, and my ancestors were born slaves. How you gonna tell us who not the Hebrew is? You know, you gotta know your book because they're definitely gonna challenge us. All right? You have captions and we have pictures. We bring it out. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. We have pictures of slaves working in the fields of the southern United States. We got it. So back-breaking tasks, children in the cotton fields. You see what I'm saying? Can you imagine being in the cotton field all day, even into the night, bent over every day, all day, back-breaking? All right? That's hard bondage. Our people would work from sun up to sundown. They're still doing that now. You know, if you're in that industry, that's how you work. If you're laying brick or doing any type of mortar or street, we see sometimes they out there in the middle of the night, in the wee early morning hours. We see that. Go ahead.
I used to hear stories of my pops, he kind of older than me. He's older friends and stuff. You see back in the day, it's probably, I guess it's probably like 30s or 40s or something maybe. They used to come like they maybe probably 3rd, 4th, 5th grade maybe. And Mr. Charlie coming out on the door saying, we need your son in the field today. He ain't going to school. Yeah, send him in the field, you know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's powerful.
That's why a lot of these never graduated.
Right, because they were already in the field. Remember, we also were in the tobacco fields. Remember the tobacco? It wasn't just cotton, it was tobacco fields, soybean, a lot of soybeans, potatoes, all that, man. Always in the field. All right? Hard bondage. Now, go ahead, bring out what
I
you
want to
want.
bring this out, going back to Adam. This is Genesis 3 and 19. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread.
Bring it out again.
Yeah, Genesis 3 and 19. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it was thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
Look at that.
You will work
To the sweat till you sweat. Back-breaking, hard bondage. That's only identified with the Israelites. And that's one thing America don't want to talk about. When they talk about apologizing or showing any empathy, they want to talk about things that they did to other nations. They want to talk about treatment of, other immigrants. But when it comes to slavery, they want to wipe that history away. They want to teach it as though we came over here on the love boat. Right. You see what I'm saying? And they always identify with indentured servants and indentured servitude. All right? When we go back to Deuteronomy 28:68, notice what the scripture said. It said that you would be sold to your enemies. Let's read that again, one more time.
Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Did we just have one group of enemies as Israel? It didn't say we were sold to the Egyptians.
Right.
So how can this be a prophecy still dealing with us being bondage in Egypt?
Right.
He said you're going to be sold to your enemies. He didn't say you're going to be sold to the Egyptians. That's another identifying characteristic. Because we know when we go to Deuteronomy 28 and 48, let's go there again, that's dealing with enemies, not Egyptians. The Most High always was distinctive as to who had us in captivity. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 28 and 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
There you go.
Which the Most High shall send against thee.
Shall do what?
Shall send against thee.
He's going to send these people. How did we get over to the shores of America? They came after us as we were sold by the so-called Arabs to the Portuguese. You see what I'm saying? So they got ships and they were sent to get us, even taking us from the west coast of Africa and bringing us over here. They traveled to those places to get us.
Yeah, not too long ago, I posted this article. It says, Feds bust modern day slavery, ring amid new immigration enforcement effort. It says at least 100 immigration workers were freed from conditions in which at least 2 died. Another was repeatedly raped, and others were kidnapped and threatened with death.
Look at that. Still going on to this day. They still have what we know to be concentration camps. That hard bond is nothing but a concentration camp. And then they want to talk about a Holocaust. It's laughable. One of the things Egypt was also always associated, that's why you see the parallels. And people say this ain't Mystery Babylon. How does it stop Mystery Babylon?
Right.
When you see these parallels. One of the things a lot of times we just bring out Exodus 20 and 1 through 3 when we talk about the house of bondage. Egypt was always known as a house of bondage, and it's more than that one scripture. Give me the book of Exodus 13 and 3 and 14. And we're going to look at some, again, looking at these other parallels of affliction. And then we're going to kind of relate Joseph's experience with Israel. Because Joseph, remember, he represents, that's kind of in Torah, in this past week's Torah portion, dealing with how Joseph, it was prophesied to him what will befall him from Jacob. All right? And he told him. And Joseph's experience in Egypt was similar to Israel's experience in the United States. All right? Read.
This is Exodus chapter 13, verse 3. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which you came out from Egypt.
When you did what?
Came out from Egypt.
You came out from Egypt. Come on.
Out of the house of bondage.
Out of a house of bondage. This is synonymous with Isaiah 48 and 10. Somebody grab that real quick. The house of bondage dealt with affliction. So it was prophesied that we were going to come to a place to serve, to be in servitude, and to be in bondage, and to be afflicted. Whoever has Isaiah 48 and 10.
It's the book of
Isaiah 48 and 10. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction.
He did what?
I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction.
This is the identifying characteristics with the furnace of affliction and being afflicted. Where has Israel been afflicted? What was the lands where we've been afflicted? And you're going to see this trail. You're going to see this trail once again of hard bondage. Give me the book of Exodus 20 and 4. Did you read 14 of Exodus 13? No, get 14.
Exodus 13 and 14. And it shall be, when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, what is this? That thou shalt say unto them, by strength of hand, Yahweh brought us out from Egypt.
Brought us out from Egypt.
From the house of bondage.
So we were delivered out of Egypt. How are we going to go into the house of bondage, go into Egypt again? No, we were delivered. We never went back to Egypt. We never traveled back to Egypt on cargo slave ships. So when people try to use that, it's ridiculous. Give me Exodus 20 and 4.
Exodus 20 and 4. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth.
Come on.
Verse 5. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Most High, thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation.
So, third and fourth generations, how many generations were after coming out of Egypt? So we see that bondage is going to continually be on there. The Most High visiting us with this furnace of affliction. That we would constantly be afflicted wherever we were. Wherever Israel is not obeying law, statutes, and commandments, you're going to see hard bondage. You're going to see affliction. We don't see that with the rest of the nations. All right, give me Deuteronomy 5 and 6. Yahshua, give me Deuteronomy 7 and 8. Malak, give me Deuteronomy 26 and 6.
Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 6. I am the Most High thy power, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage.
Come on, from the house of bondage. Come on.
Verse 7. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Now, when we came over here, what did we start? What did they teach us to worship? Other gods. Caesar Borgia. That's the first thing that they made you bow down to. All right. So we see the parallels between Egypt. We had to bow down to all their gods. We were subjugated to their feast days. We had to celebrate, when they celebrated their feast days, guess what? We were celebrating feast days. When they allowed us to have a day off in ancient Egypt, guess what? We had a day off. The same way over here in America. Is nothing new under the sun. Whoever has authority over you, that's your master. And that's where you get the taskmaster from. That's where you get the overseer from. You have to be subjugated. And this only fell on the children of Israel to this magnitude. Go ahead, pull out your scripture, Yahshua.
This is Deuteronomy 7 and 8. But because the Lord loved you, and because he will keep the oath which he has sworn unto your fathers, have the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand.
That's right. How many nations have we seen with this same identity being brought out of Egypt in this way? You don't see it. So it's no way in the world that a studied Israelite should get debunked about his identity, unless you just don't believe that you have an experience with the so-called Negro in America. Read it.
And redeem you out of the house of bondage.
Once again, out of the house of bondage. Over and over, we're going to see this. Out of the house of bondage. That's synonymous with Israel's deliverance. Being delivered from their enemies. Out of bondage. All right? Give me Malak.
Book of Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 6. And the Egyptians evil entreated us and afflicted.
They did what?
Evil entreated us.
The same thing that happened over here. We were entreated evil by our enemies. You don't never see nobody when they come up to debate us or try to debunk who we are and our identity. You never see them talk about the Egyptians. They never mention the Egyptians. How many times have you been on the street where somebody is trying to save the Egyptians? We don't see it. If you're going to fight for your enemy over here in America, what about the Egyptians? Nobody, even he laughing at that. That's ridiculous. The Egyptians can't get salvation? You okay with that history, that biblical history of them being destroyed? Most European scholars will attest to the destruction of ancient Egypt and even Pharaoh's army and the things that they found at the bottom of the Red Sea. You see what I'm saying? They identify with that. But they can't get salvation. Can the Egyptians be saved? All right, that's a question. Let's see where the Most High redeems the Egyptians. All right. So read that again. 26 it says.
And the Egyptians evil entreated us
Mm-hmm.
and afflicted us and laid upon us hard bondage.
Once again, hard bondage. That's all. What we just went over is also now with Deuteronomy 28 and 68. The hard bondage. Being evil entreated. Prophecies. Now let's look at some of the parallels of Joseph and how he was sold to the Ishmaelites, so-called Arabs, to the Egyptians as a slave. He was sold by the Ishmaelites to the Egyptians. All right? Give me Genesis 37, and let's start verse 27 and 28. Y'all all right? I know this should be Hebrew Israelite 101, but we still need to have these foundations so that we can be solid in what we teach. Because they're trying to get smarter. You know, they're really trying to combat against the Israelites. They want to see you fall. They want to trip you up. All right. Genesis 37, verse 27 and 28.
Genesis 37, 27. It says, come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites.
Let us do what?
Sell him to the Ishmaelites.
Let's think about that. What's the history of Israel? How about anybody heard the sub-Saharan slave trade? You see this, how it's lining up with what Joseph went through and what was prophesied to Joseph by Jacob, whose name is Israel. Said, this is what's going to befall your people, man. And we see this. The same things that Joseph went through, we went through as Israel. All right? Read that part again.
It says, come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites.
Let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Read on.
And let not our hand be upon him.
And let not our hand be upon him. Read on.
For he is our brother and our flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And his brethren were content. Verse 28. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen.
What men? Merchantmen. Come on.
And they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites.
And sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites. That's what happened to us.
Sold to the enemies.
You sold to your enemies. That's not, and that wasn't just Egyptians.
Right.
Sold to your enemies. You're going to see this paradigm wherever Israel was. Give me Genesis 39. Let's read 1 and 2.
Genesis 39 and 1. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites.
And bought him from an Ishmaelite. We were sold to whom? Who were the Israelites sold to? To the Portuguese. By whom? Who sold us to the Portuguese?
And Hamites.
The Hamites. Similar experience, man. Read. Verse 2.
Verse 2. And the Most High was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian.
The Egyptian. So this is the beginning of Israelite history. And we see it starting with Joseph. So when we look at Egypt, one of the things, the Hebrews were being sold into slavery by the Arabs for about 1,000 years, all right, before the Europeans arrived. It was the Arabs that first sold Hebrews to the European Portuguese, all right. Figures on the Arab slave trade in Africa are hard to come by, but the historian, and this is a quote here by Paul Lovejoy, he estimates that some 9.85 million so-called Africans, Hebrews, were shipped out as slaves to Arabia, all right, and in small numbers to the Indian subcontinent. Lovejoy breaks his figures down as follows. Between 650 AD and 1600, an average of 5,000 slaves were shipped out by the Arabs, all right. This makes a rough total of 7.25 million. Then between 1600 and 1800, another 1.4 million Hebrews were shipped out by the Arabs. The 19th century represented the highest point of the Arabian slave trade, where up to 120,000 Israelites were shipped out every year. Look at that. Look at that. And we know how long that went on, longer than what took place with us here.
That's right.
All right? The total figure of the 19th century alone was 1.2 million slaves to Arabia. According to Lovejoy, another 4.1 million so-called Africans were shipped across the Red Sea to the Persian Gulf and India. And that's why the Most High said we would be in all nations. We would be scattered everywhere.
I'm just want to bring out the fact that you just said that. 'Cause I was reading, I seen a document on the Arabs and with slavery and maritime in Africa. And just recently, maybe about 1988, about 87, that they were still, they banned slavery in maritime. This is in Africa.
Look at that.
So slavery is still going on up until 1987.
That's that hard bondage still, and the curse is still on Israel,
On our people.
on our people.
Fact.
Because they would know who we are better than we would.
That's just recent.
That's just recently. That's some curses that they will be on you for a sign and a wonder. Wherever you went. All right? That's why we don't make blanketed statements like the Africans are our people. All right? They can say what they want about the chart, but it's a reference point. It identifies the lands that we were sent to. All right? This trade also, with the notable exception of some Portuguese involvement in the area of Mozambique, and of the 18th and 19th century French exports to islands under their control in the Indian Ocean, was largely conducted by so-called what we call Arab Muslims, adds Duncan Clark. Arabs are continuing to buy and sell Israelites into slavery throughout the southern Sudan and other Arab countries. I mean, we see that. We see the Israelite identity in Sudan and in these places, in places like Mozambique. We went into the interior of Africa. We went into northern Africa. You know, we're everywhere. And we were sold everywhere. All right? So, Joseph's name was changed to Zaphanath-Paneah by Pharaoh. Now, you see the parallel? What happened when our names were changed too when we came over here? Right. You see that? Joseph had the same similar experience in Egypt. All right? The changing of the Israelites' name was a common practice here in America. You know, this was frequently. You know, our last name ain't no damn Wilburn. You know, that's my last name. You know, hey, you got the last name Wilburn. You know, you don't even look like no damn Wilburn. Go ahead. I will burn this place for the most I get order. But go ahead.
Daniel 1:6. It says, now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belshazzar.
The name of what?
The name of Belshazzar.
Now, when you even go back, what's heavy about this, they named us a lot of times after their pagan deity. That's right. That's what we were named you know. Go ahead, after, in Egypt, read.
And to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego.
Look at that. Change their name. Those were not their Israelite names. First thing they did is when they brought us over, the identifying characteristic is to change our names. All right? Another parallel with Joseph. Joseph was thrown in jail because his slave master's wife wanted to sleep with him. And we see this, give me Genesis real quick, 39. I know we're familiar with this, but we need to start bringing these things out when we teach too. because it is synonymous with what happened to us. How many times the so-called white woman called rape on the slave? You know, but look what happened to Emmett Till for just looking at him, so-called white woman. How often did that happen? Imagine if we had cell phones back during that time, during Jim Crow, or even before. You look, how many slaves that were in the cotton field wiping their brow, looked over at master's wife on the porch and got lynched? And you proud walking around with a pale-faced entity and an NBA contract. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's excuse they use to take over women in North Carolina. And the white lady said
Did somebody
whistled or something, and that gave them the excuse to take the city,
took the look?
the whole city.
It's been the ruin of many of our people, unjustly.
They said that's the first time ever in history that a government takeover.
A government takeover because a man looked at a dog,
They call it a reckless eyeball.
a reckless eyeball. Look at that.
They made it
Eyeball.
as a law.
He made it a law.
That was called Wilmington Massacre.
Yeah, the Wilmington Massacre.
Look at that.
And when they took over, they just stormed to the city campus and look, we taking over. And the guy, he was like an ex-military guy, while there, he was like, look, I'm getting mayor, taking over. We find all the blacks, everything is out the city.
Wasn't the Democrats?
Yeah, they was Democrats, because the Republicans really was the ones that really started. The Democrats was really the villains.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
Yeah, they
yeah.
consider Democrats
Many of us were Republicans.
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
In the mid-60s, they switched that, though, Democrats went to Republican.
Right, dealing with more morality and more things that what some would consider coming out of the Bible.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
that's also like, back in the day during slavery, they would always tell you, if you looked them in the eye, look down at me.
That's right.
But now the modern day for them to do that, when they nod down, when they see they nod down
That's
like
right.
that, they tell you the same thing, look down to me.
That's right. What you looking at, boy? I'm a grown man. Look what you looking at, boy. Put your head down. You couldn't even look them in the eye. You had to open the door for it and keep your head down. So Joseph was thrown in jail because of the slave master's wife wanted to sleep with. Bring that out. But he refused. And you got Negroes now, they won't refuse. They can't refuse. Go ahead.
Genesis 39:7. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me.
Nothing new under the sun. These wenches did that. These pale-faced entities did that. Women see old big John. Yeah, can't get right. Probably was, might have had some mental issues. She didn't care. Get him in here. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Verse 8. But he refused.
He did what?
He
He
refused.
refused. Read on.
And said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand.
Yeah, so Joseph was like, I've been given, a certain level of authority, but even in that circumstance, he was still seen as a servant, as a slave. All right, go to verse 10.
Verse 10. And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her, or to be with her.
Well, because he knew that this was a death penalty.
Right.
Go to verse 12.
Verse 12. And she caught him by his garment.
Look, she grabbed him. Come on. Yeah. That's a thought to the 10th power. Go ahead.
Saying, lie with me.
Come do what?
Lie with me.
Read on.
And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out.
And real talk sidebar, that's what a lot of brothers need to learn how to do too. Run, man. Stop running to stuff. Run away from stuff. What's wrong with you, man? Giving in to your own, it's another topic for another day. But you gotta learn from Joseph, man. Some stuff you gotta run away from. All right, I'll just leave it like that. Let's go to verse 19.
Genesis 39:19. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled.
That his wrath was kindled. Go to verse 20.
Verse 20, and Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. But the Most High was with Joseph.
But the what?
But the Most High was with Joseph.
Come on.
And showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
And there were a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of Israelites, even in slavery, that the Most High did show favor to, you know, where they could have been lynched and killed, and they weren't. I mean, this was our paradigm. This is how we had to live, but we were subjugated, just like Joseph was. That's my point. And like we brought out, whole towns got destroyed because a white woman falsely accused. Our men lost their lives because of being falsely accused by our enemy. And they're going to sweep this under the rug. But we're not the people of the book. But we went through the same things that we went through in ancient Egypt and all the other places that we carried away captive. So the children of Israel had population growth in Egypt. This is another synonymous thing that happened over here. And this may be the reason for the jab. It may be the reason for the jab. Because I'm hearing that you take the jab, it's making people sterile, it's causing women's cycle to be off. A lot of different things are happening as a result of the jab. And we just getting into it. So the children of Israel had a population growth in Egypt. The Egyptians were afraid of this growth because they feared that Israel would join one of their enemies and come against them. It's nothing new under the sun. Do you know America was always afraid that we were going to get with other people, their enemies. Right. They were always afraid. We're going to bring a little bit of that out. Y'all all right? Y'all still with me? Or is this just basic? We don't need to go over this.
No, we good.
All right. Give me Exodus 7 and 9. Let's go through 10.
Basics always good.
It's always good. You got to have this foundation because there are a lot of people teaching now and they're getting tripped up.
That's right.
Because they don't know the basics. And you done took authority to be a teacher, and now you got to say, oh, I gotta look that up. Oh, wait a second. You ain't in church, put your hand up. I'll be back. No, man. If you out there, you need to know what you're talking about.
That's right.
And it needs to be solid.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with solidifying your foundation. If we was as smart as we were, we wouldn't do the dumb stuff we do. Let's just keep it real. We wouldn't do the dumb stuff we do. If we was as smart, half as smart as we think we are, we wouldn't be doing dumb stuff. All right. Exodus 7, let's go 9 and 10.
It's the book of Exodus chapter 7, verse 9. When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. Verse 10, and Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Most High had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh...
That's 10.
That's 10.
Go to 12.
Verse 12, for they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. Verse 13.
That's Exodus 7.
Exodus 7.
Come. So we see that the Egyptians were afraid and they feared that Israel would join. So even with one of the things with letting us go, they didn't want to let us go because that was one of the things that they feared. They feared retaliation. And this is why the so-called white man always wants to kind of sometimes give you a gift so he can destroy your mind to have the proper indignation. You know, and we'll stimulate them a little bit. Give them the stimulus a little bit. Let them buy something, man. Let them get a big TV and we can put on that nigga basketball association. Yeah, I think that is. And see, once that nigga dribbling the back, that'll distract them. Matter of fact, you know what? Yeah, let's twerking would be good. Let's put that on the floor. TikTok. Let them TikTok themselves to death. And they won't be mad with us because they're entertaining. You see what I'm saying? These are all distractions. So we see that the population of the descendants of slaves, even over here, in the Western Hemisphere, because if you remember, we know the scripture, they wanted to kill all the firstborn males in Egypt. They wanted them gone. They don't care about keeping our women. They have no problem with it. You notice in America, America is in so much support of the black woman as long as she's not attached to the so-called black man. Oh, man, you get all types of deals. That female apotheosis, we're gonna set you up. You run your household. We got women's empowerment. I used to remember when they used to bring the women's empowerment here, and the place be filled up with women. And you done gas all them women to go home and tell their husbands what to do, which is out of the order of the scriptures. You know, pulling men to church. Oh, I'm going to church and you don't go. There's a reason he didn't want to go to church. Church ain't right. Pastor looking at your wife. You see what I'm saying? The reason you don't want to go to church. I want to go to church while the pastor lusting over you. You know, he want to have a private deacon conference with you. Yeah, in his office with the door closed, you sitting out there looking like a simp. You know, waiting for him to tell you, you know, do what she say. Man, this is ridiculous. But again, this is what's been set up in America. Go ahead.
Precept.
Bring it up.
Jeremiah 31,
That's
22.
right.
How long wilt thou go about, O thou backsliding daughter? For the Lord hath created a new thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man.
There you go. And our women, a lot of them, like Elder said, not those in here that are in this truth, but a lot of the women out there, they still feel that they have a stake in America because they're being supported. But when America falls, watch their countenance. When they can't get no help, when they can't get no assistance, when they don't have the courts mandating child support, and because they don't want to work it out with their husbands. Now, of course, we got some outright deadbeat Negroes. I mean, let's keep it real. But I'm just talking about what's being enforced and reinforced as it relates to the so-called black woman. She has been able to take authority over her relationships. She is now the masculine one. She is now dominant. You know, so we don't see that the humility that becometh Israelite women. And it's a problem because now we're being destroyed not only from without but within. But these remember, the Hebrew women refused. That goes back to, that's the same thing with Planned Parenthood. Ain't nothing new under the sun. And ancient abortion. They wanted them to, you know, the black women, they willingly abort their children. Now they willingly going, it's not, at one time black women said, no, I'm having this child. You know, and the sad truth is a lot of the women in our community, the average woman has had 2 or 3 abortions. I know that. Over the age of, if they're in their 40s, they have had average 2 or 3 abortions. That's just the truth. And that's a fair number. I probably could go high. Go ahead.
That ain't counting Plan B's and shit. Like the Plan B's.
What's
little
that?
pills?
Yeah, that's right. The Plan B's, all that. Man, that's the end of the Plan B's. What's a shameless woman counted, man? There you go. Plan B.
Yeah, you know what, Priest is absolutely correct in what he's saying. You notice how, like now when you look at the like family portraits, you ever notice the man isn't there no more? You ever notice that? The man ain't there no more. You know, you have a woman with about 3 of her sons and about 3 of her daughters. The man isn't there no more. But back when we was coming up, 70s, you know, my dad was in my family photo. You know what I'm saying? When you went inside somebody's house, your friend's house that lived next door, they always had a family portrait up on the wall. Their dad was right in that portrait. You don't see that no more.
Right.
You notice that?
Right.
Every woman that take a picture now of their kids, where the man at?
Let me tell you, those old school women used to know old Joe was sliding around. Used to know it. And said, you know what, we're keeping this family together. And a lot of times, I know this is a little side note, but for a lot of these men, one of the worst things you can have is a woman that you ain't gonna do right, and a woman that has a relationship with the Most High. Oh, you're finished. You finished. The Most High will deal with you in a way, because Jordan got killed on the tractor for doing stuff wrong. But our women were the core and really the fiber that kept us together. You see what I'm saying? So now, what we see the same parallel over here, where they're trying to separate that Israelite family. All right? So when we see the population, they were afraid of that population growth. The population of the descendants, not to mention that we had male sons at a higher rate than other nations. All right? The population of descendants of the slaves in the Western Hemisphere countries in 1950 was 48 million. All right? The biggest success story in sheer numbers among the Hebrew communities of the New World was in the U.S. when the legal slave trade with Africa ended in 1808. There were about 1 million Israelites in North America. When chattel slavery ended in 1865, there was about 4.5 million, a 3.5 million population increase. They didn't want this. In 1950, there were 15 million, and in 1990, there were at least 30 to 35 million Hebrews here, Israelites. A 24.5 to 29 million population increase in 125 years. Wow. Do you think that and you want to trust jabs? What do you think they're trying to do? What do they call it? SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Increase in our community. That's why we got to go back to midwives. We got to go back to our community doing that. These birthing schools and making sure that every Israelite life gets to come through the matrix. We got to start because they are systematically doing this. It's nothing new under the sun. Get rid of all the males. Everything that comes through the males, we want it dead.
Yeah, now he's talking a law now that we can have enforcement of it.
Look, you don't move up to 9 months. Oh, man. You see what I'm saying? 9 months. So this population growth was not the result to any significant degree of slave breeding by the masses, because the majority of slaves brought to the West were brought mainly to other Western, or what we consider Latin American countries. We know that, like Brazil and places like that. We know that history. North America didn't receive a minority of the slaves brought to this hemisphere. The Israelites' population is the result of natural growth. We were just more fruitful. Our women were more fertile. Why do you think these other nations want to take on the black woman?
That's right.
They ain't having sons with their Edomite counterparts. Betty Lou is jacked up. All right? To be considered African American, so-called, mean you are a descendant of the slaves that were brought to North America. Everybody knows that. You know, that's common knowledge. The American government has always been fearful of us joining unto one of its enemies and coming against them. During the Revolution War, the government thought our people would join forces with the British. They thought we were going to join forces. It kind of makes sense, don't it? That they would think that, but they always felt a fear in Israelite retribution. That's why they called the Israelites a terrorist group when we were on the corner teaching about it. All right? They thought we would join forces with the indigenous. All right? They thought we would join forces with the communists, and so on and so on. All right? This is why the government is fearful today of any kind of pro-black movement. And that's why they got to demonize. That's why they got to put, we on CNN. We on CNN. The Israelite people we know. Right. On CNN. And then they talk about that fringe group. That fringe group did that. And now you got our own people singing the same tune. Into the damn shame. Into the damn shame. I can't wait till the traders get there just do it. I can't wait. All great. They believe, just as Pharaoh did, that we will rise up, join one of their enemies, and come against them. The government has been fearful of this during slavery, and even to this day. That's why they pacify y'all. That's why they try to give you and keep saying, but doing something different. We all the same. All right? You notice the commercials are changing. They all mix everything, they try to mix up everything. Ginger pine, everything. They put that ginger on everything. I put that on everything. All right? Egypt, give me Exodus 1, 11 and 14. Exodus 11, 1 and 14. Do you see the importance of keeping our seed pure? You see the importance of it?
I was even gonna say, every TV show that you watch now, either it's a black woman that's gay,
Yep.
and she either dating another black woman, or she dating a white woman.
Yep.
And it's the same with the men.
It's the same with the
You know what I'm
men.
saying? So,
That's the same thing, to bring our numbers low.
I was gonna say, again, you never see in a movie or a TV show now, two white women being lesbian. You don't see that.
No.
It's always a black woman.
We have always been used as the poster child for immorality because we are supposed to be the salt of the earth.
Yeah, that new movie called Externals. They got the black guy as the gay guy. He the only one. He with another black guy, I think.
You're not tolerated in America if you are a so-called black male. Just a black man. If you're a black man, everything that has to do with masculinity and being a male, you're not tolerated in America. Come on, I see the hands going up. It's good. Go ahead.
Sorry, last night on Glenwood, we saw Jake dressed up in high heels, in the blue, holding the hands of Esau.
You see that?
It was a woman, but he was dressed up as, as a woman himself.
Acceptance. That's all it is. We're still seeking acceptance, and the white man is telling you that you can only be accepted as long as your masculinity is gone. But guess what? He's telling the black woman, you can be the man. Man, isn't that a dirty trick? Go ahead.
I was just to land me back off what y'all said. The movie Eternals is it's supposed to be the first people that was created on Earth, and they live forever. And the only external, it's only one black guy. He was supposed to be the first black guy created, and he was a homosexual.
Well, in that, think about it. You said that internal, right? Live forever. The external, temporary, right? He was the only external, and he was gay.
Yeah.
That lines up with Leviticus 20. He gonna be putting it down. He ain't gonna be eternal.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So Egyptians put hard bondage on the Israelites. They put taskmasters over them in the field. So we're gonna see the same thing happen over here. Exodus 1, 11, 14.
It says, therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens.
To do what?
Afflict them with their burdens.
Come on, unjust wages. All right. Again, work is sun up, sundown. It's still gonna, you working, you doing the job, they bringing somebody else in, you have to teach them, now they get your position and they get more pay. You working along somebody that don't know as much as you, and he's saying, yeah, I make twice as much as you. Huh? You just got here, I've been here for 30 years.
They say you overqualified.
Overqualified? How's somebody overqualified? We always been overqualified for people that's beneath you.
That's right.
All right? We always been overqualified. Read.
Come. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied.
The more they what?
They multiplied.
And you notice they tried to do that with us, even afflicted us with Planned Parenthood, crack epidemic, and now with this. They tried, but the more they do, we were always able to come out of it because of the Most High and because of what He promised Israel, what He promised Joseph. What Israel promised Joseph and what will befall his people. Go ahead.
It's a lot. When you look at the 80s and 90s, a lot of those children that was going through that crack epidemic, Jake was surviving through that.
That's right.
The crack babies grew up and then they went to high school with them, and you went to college with them.
That's right.
Some of them Edomite children, they didn't make it through that.
They didn't make, and they're not making it through old how the tables have turned. The meth. They're not making it through that.
The kids not making it.
They're not making the opioid epidemic. So they got to do something to balance this out. we see through ancient Egyptian artifacts where the taskmasters are beating the slaves. And we got pictures of that happening over here.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun. The Hebrews spent over 400, which we know, 430, dealing with Egypt, and half of that being split. But give me Exodus 12 and 40. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah, how to keep afflicting us, how to, like in the 70s with the Aaron, in the 80s, correct? So the crafty council that they doing now, they figured that they can't get the young boys, they really can't, they just put guns.
They do the
They
gun.
gonna kill them
That's right.
and capture.
They always are gonna attack the children. That's always been the attack. Let's get them before, and that's why I'm very fearful about the jab concerning our children, because now they're pushing it on the little ones. They're pushing it on the little ones now. My sister, she told me that, she obviously not the truth, but she told me that they told her daughter, she took it. She's in school. She can't be over 15 years old. She took it, and somebody around them had contracted, but they said, 5 days. She only got to stay out 5 days. But we're proving that the increases are coming with people that have taken the jab. So what sense does this make? And then the strands are constantly changing. You got different variants, and now they're talking about, I don't mean to laugh, but man, how dumb can a group of people be? Now they're talking about a pan jab, one that'll cover all the variants. Man, why you do that in the first place? Just talking about what? You think I'm Bobo? The stuff they telling us, King Yashu, is ridiculous. And the stuff, man, the chemtrails, and people believe in this stuff, man.
Yeah, Israel just dropped another vaccine. Said already 500,000 already took it.
You dropping vaccines? You so smart. You dropping vaccines and you reacting to variants that are changing, but you couldn't just deal with it in the beginning. It just lets you know, man, that this is something else.
Right.
That this is totally something else. So once again, we spent hundreds and hundreds of years in America as slaves. We were first brought to the hemisphere in the 1500s. Slaves were in North America as early as 1521. So we were here early, before the 1600s, which, slaves were first brought to the English colony of West Virginia in 1619. But other colonies, such as the Spanish, already, not West Virginia, I believe the Virgin Islands, the 1619. No, it was West Virginia, it was Virginia. Jamestown, 1619. But other colonies, such as the Spanish, already had slaves here. So according to many scholars and even Egyptologists, the Israelites were more than likely free from bondage under the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II, son of Seti I. All right, that's which we know it wasn't total freedom, but where they called it deliverance. The Israelites in America, here's the parallels, were freed from chattel slavery under President Lincoln. Neither Lincoln or Ramses wanted to free the Israelites. And this is a known fact. Right. Pharaoh Ramses made it known, and you can read this in what he says in Exodus 14 and 5, and then we're going to read what that damn Lincoln said.
All right. Exodus chapter 14, 12 and 40, you said?
Yeah, read that.
This is Exodus 12 and 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
Yeah, just proving the time frame. Go to Exodus 14 and 5.
Exodus 14 and the 5th verse. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, why have we done this? That we have let Israel go from serving us.
Why did we that's why you think they don't want to let us go. Why every movement that we've tried to make to return back to Africa, the Marcus Garvey movement, any movement that we try to make, they make it hard. Everything that they do, you think it may have to do with with who we are and why they don't want us to travel, passports,
Right.
social security.
That's right.
Could have to do with just Israel. Everything got to do with you.
That's right.
It's all about the Most High's people. Every move they make was a song. Every move they make, every move you take. That's what they do, man.
We're watching you.
I'll be watching you. They watching us. They watching us. They want to see because they don't want to let us go. We are their cash cow. We've always been. And when we leave, that's why the Revelations 18:4, when we come out, it's over with. The Most High is free and clear to drop the bomb. Who had something? Go ahead, Hashio.
I was just gonna say, you was talking about the jab, right? When we left Egypt, we left in a military formation.
That's right.
They trying to diminish the army of the Lord.
There you go.
We gonna take the kingdom.
Take the king, make us weak and feeble. You see what I'm saying? And mentally, it's already, that definitive line is being drawn because people that are leaning on the side, it's already showing their weak nature. They're not trusting the Most High. All right.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct. When the Israelites left Egypt, Egypt fell. I said Egypt was never the same again after that. Just imagine how New Orleans is every night. That's how Egypt was when the Israelites was in there. Okay, that's how Egypt was. The city of Cairo, where the Israelites, when you do the research on the city of Cairo, that's where the Israelites lived at, projects and everything. All right, Egypt was never the same after Israel left. That's why you got people that go over there today. They taking pictures of the pyramids that the Israelites built. You know, they're taking pictures and relics of when we were over there. Nobody going to Egypt. Egypt ain't no problem community no more.
Right.
Israelites left. That was it. Egypt is the pinnacle,
Right.
and the be all. How come it's dead as hell over there now, man? Because the Israelites ain't over there no more. So conscious people can say what the hell they want to say. Egypt is dead. Only thing over there is a bunch of sand and a bunch of pyramids that have been rebuilt, okay, and retouched up. That's it.
That's right. Why do you think they call America the greatest country? Why there's always great? Every country that was deemed the greatest country, one common denominator: the Israelites are there, and they're the ones that built it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to go along with Elders Quran, all you see over there now is the people that call themselves Egyptian, it's just Edomites, man. They're not even real Egyptians. They done left too.
Right, the prophecy, if you read the book of Ezekiel 29, it tells you exactly what would happen to Egypt. And it is, they'd be a base kingdom. And that's exactly what they are. That's why none of these prophecies going to fail. Go ahead, Yachanan.
That's right.
Jeremiah 50:33.
Bring it up.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel
That's right.
and the children of Judah were oppressed together.
That's right.
And all they that took them captive held them fast. They refused to let them go.
They did what?
They refused to let them go.
And that's what Pharaoh, perfect scripture, Pharaoh did not want to let them go. And guess who else? We're going to see a parallel over here in Egypt. Lincoln never wanted to let us go. We're going to read one of that dirty devil's quotes. All right? So Lincoln made it known he didn't want to free the slaves by his statements. And I quote, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it."
That's right.
That's what he said. He didn't want to let nobody go.
That's why they gave it Juneteenth.
That's why they gave you Juneteenth. That's right. They okay with you being here. They okay with you shopping at Walmart. They okay with you celebrating Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's. They okay with you taking the jab. They okay with all that. But they're not okay with indemnifying you. They're not okay with acknowledging who you are and releasing you. That's why I said no man shall redeem us. No. Both Lincoln and Ramses are known as the greatest leaders of their country. When you talk about America, they talk about Lincoln like they do Ramses in Egypt. United States and ancient Egypt. Ramses is best known as Ramses the Great. Many historians call Lincoln the greatest U.S. president ever. Now, if you even look at the memorial, you got memorial statues of Pharaoh, Ramses II, and he's sitting like this. Guess what? You got the Lincoln Memorial doing the same. That's right. Say they both sitting up there in that same way. The Hebrews built treasure cities for Pharaoh, such as Ramses and Pithom. Give me Exodus 1 and 11. And we're going to see the treasure. Who built the treasure cities over here? We did. So these are other aspects and more evidence to who we are. And that's why I wanted to bring it out today so that we could, make sure these things are known when we go out here and teach. It's too much evidence. It's too much evidence. Deuteronomy 28 and 68 is all fine and well, but we got a lot more than that.
That's right.
We got a lot more than Deuteronomy 28 in terms of identifying who we are. Read Exodus 1 and 11.
Exodus 1 and 11. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities.
Build what?
Treasure cities.
Build treasure cities, like treasure troves, making them money. That's why Pharaoh didn't want to let us go, the Israelites go. That's what people want to say. Yeah, the Most High hardened his heart, but his heart was his mind. And the wicked kings of these nations, you don't know that the Most High is hardening their minds?
Right.
They're doing what they're doing because the Most High is doing it because he loves us and he wants us to come out. Right. And our people talking about, no, I ain't no Israelite. That don't identify with me. I'm an American. What? Man, Hebrews built many of the cities in the U.S., but we also built their treasure city. Number one called Washington, D.C.
Right.
The capital. In a recent Associated Press article, this was revealed. Here's a portion of the story. I'm going to read this real quick. Washington. It's AP. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's some type of post. Associated Press. Some workers who helped build the White House and Capitol, two national landmarks of democracy and freedom. Notice we were building statues and buildings that signified freedom when we ourselves weren't free. All right? So some workers who helped build the White House and Capitol, the Capitol that they stormed up there, two national landmarks of democracy and freedom, weren't free at all. They were slaves. And a local television station reported Thursday that it has obtained the pay slips to prove it. Historians have known for years that local property owners loaned slaves to help build the president's residence. This is a known fact. How often is that brought up? Every time they have any memorial, any type of President's Day, anything to do with the White House, anything to do with America, how often is that brought up? They give you Juneteenth. Thursday, Salakia. Historians have known for years that the local property owners loaned slaves to help build the president's residence and the meeting house of Congress, but details of their work have laid in archives and libraries for generations. On Thursday, WRC-TV, an NBC-owned station in Washington, reported that it had obtained actual pay statements found in Treasury Department papers at the National Archives. The station reported that the two building projects employed 650 people over 8 years, including 400 slaves and more than 50 free blacks. The slaves earned $5 a month, which was given to slave owners. You talk about slave wages. It was given to slave owners who hired them out, the station reported. This is still going on today. Right. Us locked up in prison houses, what do you think we're building? And more plantations. We're building more plantations for us, so that's what the prison house is. As was stated at the beginning, okay, so that's it on that. But that's why there are parallels between both captivities, and so hopefully, that's it I'm gonna bring out on that. Hopefully we'll see and be able to articulate even more, and there's much more than that, but as it relates to, our captivity. I wanted to bring this out lastly. This is just a little bit of the Torah portion and kind of where we need to find ourselves today in the scheme of all this, now that we know all this. And I want to go to the book of 1 Kings. let's see, because I think the Torah portion was 1 Kings 2, chapters 1 through 12. And obviously, we're not going to go through all of that. I just want to bring out a little bit and look at the character even of Solomon. And we could take a lesson from this. You know, people bring this out a lot, but Solomon's character is definitely something to learn from. All right? So, you know, chapter 2 talks about the time set. I'm just kind of brief it. The instruction that was given to Solomon from David. And this is what he said in verse 1. Now the days of David, chapter 2, verse 1, I'm going to read it. Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die. And he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong therefore, and show thyself a man. And so this is prolific for us as Israel, so that now that we know that we're Israel, our responsibility as men and what the Most High requires of us. This was a wonderful example. 1:3. This is what King David said. Right. This is what David told his son. This is what we should be telling our sons. Right. This is what we should be telling the generation after us. He told us in verse 3, and keep the charge of Yahweh, thy power, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law. Right. This should never change. This should never change, as it is written in the law. We know YAHAWAH'S reiterated this, all right? Of Moses, because we're having a problem now. People are trying to differentiate between the law of Christ and then the law of Moses, as though they're two different things. Right. And we know that they're not. All throughout the New Testament, you can find the law of God. Mm-hmm. All right, who is that? Is that the law of Christ? Or is that still the law of Moses? You know, okay, another teaching for another time. But Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all thou doest. So King David told Solomon to listen to the law of Moses so that you can prosper in all thy doing. YAHAWAH said, every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Most High. Did the Most High prescribe the law of Moses? Did it come from his mouth? Of course. That's right. And whithersoever thou turnest thyself, that Yahweh, verse 4, may continue his word. So the fact that the Most High is discontinued with us is because we're not continuing in his word. All right, beloved? So this is what we need to make sure that we're doing. Which he spake concerning me, saying, if thy children take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth, which we know the truth being the law, with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail thee. You know how powerful that is, that we won't fail. That you won't fail, said he, a man on the throne of Israel. So Israel would be in rulership. There would never fail a man to rule and to be authority, and that's rulership in the earth. All right? So we need to say, if we want rulership, we need to take heed to that. Let's go to verse 9 real quick. Now therefore hold him not guiltless, for thou art a wise man, and knowest what thou oughtest to do unto him. But his whore head bring thou down to the grave with blood. So there were even instructions that were being given to Solomon to destroy men that oppose him and the authority of the Most High, and the authority that was given to him by King David. That's right. And this was within our own ranks. He's going taking people out. You know, so how much more us needing to separate from certain people? That's what you need to get from this. When men prove themselves not to be of the persuasion of building a temple unto the Most High, of setting up his righteous order, of promoting laws, statutes, and commandments, these are men that you need to separate from. That's men that are not down with the spiritual protocol that's the emphasis is being placed on in these scriptures. They're men that want to do stuff their way. These are men that men like David and Solomon killed. All right? These are the ones that the priests came and took heads off. All right? That's right. So let's go to 1 Kings verse 40, chapter 2 still, I'm gonna read 43. Why then hast thou not kept the oath of Yahweh and the commandment that I have charged thee with? The king said moreover to Shemiel, thou knowest all the wickedness which thine heart is privy to, that thou didst to David my father. This is one of these men that he was like, look man, why didn't you do this? And we need to ask ourselves that question. Why then hast thou not kept the oath of Yahweh? What is the oath of Yahweh? The promise he made to us, to those that keep his laws. That's right. And you need to ask yourself, am I doing that? Because it's going to be off with your head. And the commandment that I have charged thee with. Give me Ron, Ezekiel 17 and 19 real quick. And I'm almost finished. Not going to be long. Not going to be much longer. We got to play till 3, so we'll have some time.
Ezekiel 17 and 19. Therefore thus saith Yahweh thy power, as I live, surely mine oath that he hath despised, and my covenant that he hath broken, even it will I recompense upon his own head.
It just would behoove you to do what the Most High asked you to do.
Right.
It's going to be favorable to you. And he reiterates that. He told you, it'll go well with you for thy good. Right? So the things that we know to do, we got to start doing them, man. Or the Most High will pay. It ain't about what men can do to you. All right? The king said, I'm in verse 44, the king said moreover to Shemiel, thou knowest all the wickedness which thine heart is privy to, that thou didst to David my father. Therefore Yahweh shall return thy wickedness upon thine own head. And King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established before Yahweh forever. So the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, which went out and fell upon him, that he died. And the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. You see that? The kingdom, certain men gonna have to give away for the kingdom to be established.
That's right.
That's just the way that story ends. I'm gonna go to we're in chapter 3. Read verse 1 to 3 real quick. And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter, and brought her into the city of David, until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of Yahweh, and the wall of Jerusalem round about. 2, only the people sacrificed in high places, because there was no house built unto the name of Yahweh until those days. Verse 3, and Solomon loved Yahweh, walking in his statutes of David, his father. Only he sacrificed and burned incense into high places. So we see here where Solomon at one time, he did possess a righteous character. You know, he loved Yahweh. Verse 5, in Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and the Most High said, ask what I shall give thee. And really, when we come to this truth, that's where we find ourselves. You find yourself in that position where the Most High, you have an opportunity to receive from the Most High, because he's called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Light represents things that he wants to illuminate, things that he wants to give you, things that you've never seen before. Night and sleep represent darkness and blindness. All right? But the Most High comes to us in darkness. That's what he did even to Solomon while he was sleeping. You see what I'm saying? It's usually upon our bed that we meditate. I know many of us have been in the bed of affliction. Right. But it's in that place where you meditate and you commune with the Most High. That's right. All right? We got to get up from that place, but we got to walk as children of the light. You know, not be influenced by our own desires. 6, and Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he has walked before thee in truth and in righteousness. A lot of the reasons why we receive what we're receiving is because of what somebody else did. And we need to remember that. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right. We need to remember that. And in uprightness of heart with thee, and thou hast kept for him his great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. I I'm gonna go down to verse 9. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge the people, and I may discern between good and bad. The Most High was gonna give Solomon what he asked for. And this is what Solomon asked for. Isn't that heavy?
Right.
And that's why the Most High is coming to test us, man, to see what you really about. What do you really want?
Yeah.
What do you really want in this? You turban wearing something? What do you want? Your long garb having? What do your armbands? What do you really want, man? What do you want in this? All right? And thy servant, Salaki, give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. Man, discernment is one of the greatest gifts, because discernment, out of all that it can do, it can keep you in relationship with the Most High. That's what you want. All right? To know whether, should I be over here? Because that seems to be a problem in Israel. Should I be over there? Should I do this? Should I do that? Because a lot of our ways, since we've been in this, have been crooked.
That's right.
Because we ain't got no discernment. We gotta backtrack. Now we gotta clean up. Now we gotta fix stuff. You see what I'm saying? Have we just asked for discernment? Man, oh, how straight and narrow would the straight and narrow be? All right? For who was able to judge this thy so great people? And the speech pleased Yahweh. Man, that's what we want, our words to please the Most High. Not man, but it's ours.
That's right.
We don't want to please men. Our speech don't need to please men. I'm not teaching so you can tell me, man, you talk good, man. I don't want to teach good. I want to teach right. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And a lot of brothers are out here so that they can, look how well I can teach. Man, I broke that thing down, then I broke it down to the size. Wasn't it? How many likes I got on? I know they like that. Man, come on, man. Come on, man. You're going off, man. Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. What you said was powerful, because that's what Solomon said, to judge thy people.
Right.
Now, in order to judge your people, you gotta be clean first.
You got to be clean first. You got to be clean first. Even for the Most High to come to David in that way. What did it say prior? It said he loved the Most High. And that wasn't with lip service.
Right.
That wasn't with lip. If the Most High tell you you love him, know that you're doing something for that to be said from the Most High. All right? How can that be said of us? The Most High to come through here and go over each one of our heads? Could he say he loved you? A lot of us think that he loves us just because. That's not true. If he said, if you love me, keep the commandments. And this is how we know what love is. Their requirements. You see what I'm saying? It ain't just, I love you. That's that Christian doctrine. God is love, so he loved me no matter what. I know God loves me some me. Come on, man. He don't love you some you. He don't love the people that act like you. And the speech pleased Yahweh that Solomon had asked this thing. And the Most High said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and has not asked for thyself long life. He ain't had a gimme spirit. It wasn't about him spirit. It was about the people. Do you know a lot of your ailments gonna go away when you start thinking about somebody else other than yourself?
That's right.
When you start thinking about somebody, do you know some of the people that live the longest are caregivers? Are grandmothers that take care of grandchildren? A lot of times they outlive their children. The greatest amongst you let him serve.
That's right.
It's the prideful, the self-centered, the self-willed man that gets brought down a lot of times. I mean, let's tell the truth. And the Most High said, I've seen it. I've seen old women dealing with some of their grandchildren that have certain ailments and mental issues and things like that. And man, they stay with them children, even when the mother don't want to deal with them, and they outlive their children. Man. It's true. And the Most High said to him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. That's what we want. We need to take a page from that. We need to get our houses in order and say, Father, give me judgment. Give me what Solomon asked for. I want to be able to discern right amongst your people. All right? I want to be able to judge right. Because all of us, when we go out there, whether it's the men or women, you're going to need discernment in these last days. If we don't need anything else, we need discernment. We got to stop looking to, you're going to trust other men that may not have it? That's what you're going to trust your faith to? 12, behold, I have done according to thy words. Because some people tell you should be over here, and you can follow an individual to your own demise. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding mind. Wise and understanding mind. So that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. Who was wiser than Solomon? And guess what? We got to see this, beloved. Solomon was not wise of himself.
That's right.
The Most High made him wise. That's what the Most High put that measure of wisdom on him. That's what elevated him. You can't elevate yourself to that stature. Stop trying to do it. You can't elevate yourself to that stature. You have to qualify to be elevated. But you can't do it. Sometimes we take too much upon ourselves. We're thinking more highly of ourselves than we are. All right. You're not that special. All right. You're a special people unto the Most High. But you're only as special as the Most High elevates you. Bring it out. I knew that you would. Go ahead.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 14, and verse 11. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased.
Shall be what?
Shall be abased.
And this is why. Because I'm not going to go into the story, but when Solomon got out of, because people ask, how did Solomon being that wise? Because it wasn't his wisdom.
That's right.
It was the wisdom of the Most High. When he started to exalt himself, boom, he fell. That's where we fall. When we start to exalt ourselves. You get in this thing, the Most High promoted you up, he picked you up, he picked you up, he picked you up. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You love the Most High, he loves you, you're your first love, everything go back. Then now you get up there, and now you start getting I'm feeling myself. Right. Now your wings don't work no more. Now you're like, oh, you're like a bird who was shot by a BB pellet. Now you're coming down. Now you're coming down. We got to remember that it's the Most High that exalts us. Go ahead.
For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted.
Shall be exalted. And that's what Solomon did. He was humble. How do you humble yourself? By loving the Most High. That's how you humble yourself. By loving the Most High with all your heart, mind, soul.
This is Psalms 35, start at 23. Stir up thyself and awake to my judgment, even unto my cause, my God and my Lord. Verse 24. Judge me, O Lord my God, according to thy righteousness.
Come on.
And let them not rejoice over me.
Right. It's his righteousness. That's why when we say, in the scriptures that say our righteousness is as filthy rags, that should be humbling. Right. You know, Christians always talk about, you can't keep the law. You can't keep the law. You're going back into bondage again. It's not me keeping it more than the Most High elevating me to that level to acknowledge him. That's his spirit. You see what I'm saying? You can't keep it. Right. If you don't have love for the Most High. You won't keep it. Right. All right. And verse 13 of 1 Kings 3. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked. Whoa. Both riches and honor. When I used to read this when I was younger in the truth, I used to ask for the wisdom of Solomon, but I knew that I wanted riches. So the most I know what you know, so I was trying to be kind of sneaky about it, slick, like I was gonna get over, like I was gonna be like, shoot, Solomon, he asked, he got the riches, but he asked for wisdom. I want wisdom, Father. And man, you know I wanted riches, man. You know, I'm gonna take you think you slick. No, you can't. I'm gonna take you through trials. You're gonna get your wisdom another way. Right. Now, I ain't giving it to you like this, because what you really want, you want to buy, you just want the riches and honor. You just talking. All right. Now, a lot of us think we can do that with the Most High. You can't out-reason the Most High. That's crazy, man. I'm gonna ask for, I know he gave Solomon riches, so I'm gonna ask for wisdom. Man, you better all just asking for riches. All right, 13. And I've also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor. What you know what that's called? False humility. A lot of brothers in Israel possess that. Right. Acting like they humble, but you're not really humble. Riches and honor. So that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. 14. And this is the epitome of the scripture we just read. Well, Yachanan just brought up, if you humble yourself, he going to exalt you. You see that? 14, and if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk. So we got examples in this thing.
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 51. Have mercy upon me, O power, according to thy loving kindness. According unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions.
Do what?
Blot out my transgressions.
Come on.
Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee, thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight.
That's heavy. Because what that does is take the blame off others, and it puts the spotlight on yourself. It really does. And now you allow yourself to be cleansed, so now that you can properly see. It goes back to first remove that beam that's in your eye before you start removing motes, man, because you're groping at people. You want to be quick to correct somebody else, but are you clean? And these are the things, that's why I always tell husbands, man, don't have emotional conversations with your wives. Stop having an emotional conversation. You gotta learn to be quiet. So you ain't gonna out-talk no woman. You ain't gonna win that. I know that. I ain't gonna out-talk my wife. She will finish me. I will lose that battle. That's one battle. Sometimes I just go in the corner, just stand in the corner, look in the corner. Now I'm better off in the corner, man. Just go to the corner, man. Take a knee. You're not gonna win. And because we are the ones that should set the tone. So a lot of times you get the first thing I had to learn to do, man, what did I do? Right. What did I do to set this thing off like this? Right. And so you start, and man, well, let me get clean first. Let me clean up, and then we can go ahead and do this. But right now, it ain't gonna talk. Right. All praise. Go ahead. Was that it?
Yeah, I'm going to about 6. That thou mightest be justified.
Now, that's key. Because a lot of times we're going to approach and touch things, and you haven't been cleared yet. You're not justified to do that. Because who he justified, guess what else he does? He qualified. All right? You only qualify once you justify. I sound like Jesse Jackson. But it's the truth. Go ahead.
When thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest.
You know how powerful this is? Because this all goes back to discernment. Now you're clear to have discernment. Read on.
Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me.
That's the humbling aspect. Read on.
Behold, thou desirest truth in the reward in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom.
That's where it's in the hidden part. It's in the secret place. It's in the place that the Most High sees, and the place that a lot of times you can't see. You know, a lot of times when we were babies, we didn't know how to get clean, right? Your parents had to clean you up, get behind that neck. You know what I'm saying? Under that right here, under the ear, right here. So a lot of times people leave out. You gotta get right up in that corner where that ear. One time, man, I said, man, what in the world? What is that behind the ear? I said, no, yeah. I said, man, hey, you better start cleaning that spot, brother. You're gonna be offensive. But go ahead.
Let me jump to 13.
Come on.
Then will I teach transgressors their ways, thy ways.
Then, because a lot of us have the stench of imperfection on us and trying to touch other people and tell them to be perfect. First you gotta, then you would read that part again.
Then will I teach transgressors thy ways.
And this works all across the board, even in relationships. A lot of times you gotta look at yourself before you start to want to go to correcting and making things right and placing demands.
That's right.
So hey, ain't nothing wrong with a corner, man. Take a knee, brother. Right. Nothing wrong with that once in a while. Right. That's right. Right? Come on.
And sinners shall be converted unto thee.
And then I can convert. Goes back to what Peter once Yahawash said, when you're converted, then go strengthen your brothers. That's right. But you gotta get right first. All right? 14. And ain't no shame in that. 14. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. Right. Then he gave him long life. Because what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul, his usefulness? If you know, there's no reason for you to be here if you're not going to do what I asked you to do. All right? 15. And Solomon awoke. Man, that was a powerful dream. And behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of Yahweh and offered up burnt offerings. Man, how many times when we hear the instruction of the Most High, we hear this word, that we have that excitement, that we want to acknowledge the Most High. We want to offer up something unto him, meaning offer up righteousness, that we want to do right. Because that's what Solomon woke up to, wanting to do right. He had already purposed in his heart, said he loved the Most High, but made him want to do right even more. Some of us satisfied with not doing right. And we keep going on like ain't nothing going to happen. Man. And offered peace offerings, Father have mercy, and offered peace offerings and made a feast to all his servants. Man, this was behind a dream that the Most High told him what he knew he was going to be blessed with. Man, we should feel this way about being an Israelite. Why don't we? Something to think about. And your sins weighed you down. Right. 16. Then came there two women that were harlots. Look what happened. Right after you get anointed, everything going. Well, look what happened. Look who show up. All right. Look who show up. That's another topic for another day. 16 is done always. Then came there two women that were harlots unto the king and stood before him. And the one woman said, O Yahweh, I am this woman, dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And so we know the account. I don't want to read all into it, where you had the two women. One, the child belonged to the child. She switched her child with the other one and put the dead child within the other woman's bosom while she was sleeping, and vice versa. So they get ready to come before Solomon. And this is the answer that he gave. And notice how the Most High had blessed him with this wisdom right after the dream. After what he did, he acknowledged the Most High. A lot of times the Most High has given us all these promises. What's the one thing we don't do? We don't acknowledge him. You got to acknowledge him before you even get the blessing or the gifting. Right. You gotta acknowledge him first. Right. Acknowledge him in all your ways. Go ahead.
I had a scripture.
Bring it up.
Job 33 and 14. For Yahweh speaketh once, yea twice, yet man perceiveth it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, and slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said. On the bed, in your bed. That's a lot of times when the Most High speak to you. Yeah, man, all praises. And then he sealed the things. We got to see and know his voice. That's why he said, my sheep know my voice. So verse 27 of 1 Kings 3 says, then the king answered and said, give her the living child. So he told one of the women, he made the decision, said, well, just give the living child to this woman. And in no wise slay it, Salaki. This was a woman that said that. Let me go back up to verse 23. Then said the king, the one saith, this is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead. And the other say, nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. Now, the one that's dead is your son, you know. And they two harlots. 24. And the king said, bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. So look, Solomon was wise. He said, bring a sword. We're going to figure this out. 25. And the king said, divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Now, him knowing all, this is the aspect of being wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. Don't it remind you even the binding of Isaac and the sacrifice? Just to see. Solomon had that same wisdom because it came from the Most High. It was the same thing. The same kind of thing. He wasn't going to kill her, actually have him sacrifice his son. But he was to see. That's why a lot of times, man, it's in our near-death experiences that a lot of stuff, the best things birth. When that pressure is applied, that's a lot of times when the best comes out.
Right.
All right. And the king said, divide the living child in two and give half to the one and half to the other. Verse 26, then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son, and she said, oh my power, or my Adawan, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, I can imagine too, she probably had a twisting neck. Oh, heavy this woman. Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divine. No, the heavy neck woman. 27. Then the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother there. So he knew.
Right.
He knew, and we need to have that discernment when dealing with people. Right. That's why you got to label. You got to know that, especially if you call yourself a king, a priest, an elder, a servant. Either one, you need to have that. 28. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king. People, when you have discernment, some people don't want to be around you. Don't take it as an insult a lot of times. A lot of people don't want to be around you if you have discernment. That's why, again, the two witnesses are going to be YAHAWAH'S. That's all the witnesses we need. But the Most High is still in the business of speaking to certain men and women. That's right. You still got prophets out here. You still got prophets out here. That spirit is still out here. You got priests out here. You still got elders. You got kings. That spirit, because it's the spirit coming from the Most High. That's right. But when you think you're a king of your own, now you're not a king at all. That's the Most High spirit that makes you a king. That's his spirit.
Yeah, just go on when you say just to add on to the story. You can do that with your kids. Call your kids in the room and ask them a question and look them right in the eyes. Okay? Hey, look me in my eyes and speak to me and tell me the truth. A lot of times when they lying, they ain't gonna look at you. They're gonna look the other way. You can ask them a question. You can do that with your woman too. You look at her eyes. A lot of times you ask them a question, because the Most High said the eyes are the mirrors and the windows to the soul. You look at somebody in their face, you can tell eyebrows go up this way, looking up this way. The kid may say, my son Joshua do it all the time. I asked him about a month ago, I said, Josh, come here, man. He said, I'm busy right now. Man, look. So that's one of you, aren't you? So So I called him back, I called him backstage, I said, ask you a question. Looking up to the ceiling, I said, okay, answer me, man, let me ask you a question. You couldn't answer the question, man. You couldn't answer the question, man, you lying, man. You can't make this up, man.
Right.
You talk to your kids in the eyes, man. 9 times out of 10, they lying. They gonna shift their eyes this way up. You know, they ain't gonna tell you the truth, man. You know, brothers do that too.
That's right.
Sometimes you look brothers in the eyes, man. They looking this way, fixing food, shuffling around, man. Hey, bro, let me talk to you for a minute. Shuffling, I gotta go.
All right, you need that. But that wisdom is gonna come from above.
Right.
All right, so this, we see the character, and we know that Solomon later, he went off. But we need to learn, like the scriptures before I learned it, that the Most High was with him, and the Most High showed the people in the same way that he showed the people concerning Moses. It was not of themselves.
Right.
Moses didn't have to do this
Right.
to get people to see who he was.
Right.
We don't have to do that.
That's right.
You don't have to do it. Solomon didn't have to do that.
Right.
All was necessary was to love. What type of character was Moses? He was meek.
Right. Yep.
You see, the humility comes before the authority. But we want the seat of authority without the humility. You will never get it. It's like building a tower, a Babel, building a tower unto the heavens. You'll never get there. All right? So I'm going to end with that. You know, we got a little time. Anybody got any questions, comments they want to bring out? Anything concerning what we just talked about? We're free to do so. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. Let's put our hands together for the most power.